For those who seek adventure, this is the Buffalo Roamer Podcast, sharing the people, places, and moments that make a life on the loose worth living.
The thing that's going to stick out to you most is when they open up that plane door. The cold is something like you've never felt.
The jungle's so thick, even if you had a machete, you couldn't get through it.
There's a huge blonde grizzly bear. And when it saw us, this thing put its head down, stomped on the ground, and hissed like an alligator.
I just crossed this brutal stretch of desert, and I was really suffering.
I'm your host, Will Collins. I'm an adventurer, outdoorsman, and roamer of wild places. I've backpacked the Brooks Range, rafted the Grand Canyon, and have canoed from source to sea, both the Mississippi and Yukon rivers. I live for adventure, travel, fresh air, and diving into the unknown. And now, I hope to share my passion with you on the Buffalo Roamer Podcast. All right, we are rocking and rolling, episode 64. Thanks for tuning in yet again. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you're subscribed. That helps us, helps the show grow, and also make sure you get the latest episodes downloaded automatically right when they are released. Hey, have you heard of Camp Manitouish YMCA up in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin, in the North Woods? One of the most beautiful places in the world. Well, for over 100 years, they've been developing character and teaching leadership to kids of all ages. So what exactly is it? Camp Manitouish YMCA is a 3-week sleepaway camp for children 5th through 10th grade. They offer wilderness canoe trips as well as archery, riflery, horseback, and more. They do wilderness trips, big wilderness trips for teens 9th through 12th grade in the Outpost program. I was part of that program as a teenager, and that's where my passion for these long-distance outdoor adventures really took root. So go check them out at manitouish.org. That's manito-wish.org. Or you can just Google Camp Manitouish YMCA. You can spell it wrong like I do, and it'll still pop right up. Go enroll a kid, find out more, join the staff, and help keep getting kids out in the outdoors. That's Camp Manitouish YMCA in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin. Also want to note that the October Buffalo Roamer Wilderness trip to the Green River in Moab, Utah is full. No more spots left on that one. However, I still have a few spots left for the May trip to the Green River. It's going to be epic, absolutely huge red rock walls. You feel like you're in the Grand Canyon. It's an amazing trip. So if you want to join us on that one, the October trip is full. The May of 2023 trip still has a few spots open. So email me at buffaloroamer@yahoo.com. Also still have a few spots open for our Yukon River adventure this summer, and that's going up to the wild lands of the Yukon Territory. So email me at buffaloroamer@yahoo.com if that interests you. There's a few spots open for that one too. Okay, I'm going to be speaking at Canoecopia. That's a week from now when this episode drops. It's March 12th, 2023. Excited to be there. So if you're at Canoecopia, the world's largest canoe and kayak convention in Madison, Wisconsin, come say hi to me on Sunday. I'll be out there on Saturday walking around. Sunday I have 2 presentations that I will be giving, so be sure to say hi. Also, be sure to leave a review on these episodes. It really helps us out on Apple Podcasts. Write a quick review, give us 5 stars. Okay, without further ado, episode 64 is my good friend Pieter Gerrits. Peter and I have been on all kinds of backcountry trips over the years, from canoeing to backpacking and rafting, all kinds of fun stuff in between. So without further ado, episode 64 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors with Pieter Gerrits. Excited to talk about the outdoors, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on here, to be considered a real outdoorsman.
Oh man, you're funny. I had to pull your teeth a little. Not pull your teeth. That's probably not the right term, but you were reluctant to come on. I'm surprised and share some stories because to set the scene. So we've been doing trips for quite some time now. Since right after we got out of college, which would have been 2014 or no, wait.
Yeah, I think our first trip was right after college. I think it was like 2013. We did that Wind River trip. Jackson had been doing some trips with you. You're an elusive high school friend.
Yeah. So we, So I had a mutual friend who you met in college, who became outdoor buddies. And we've done a bunch of trips since then and got into canoeing and paddling and done all kinds of fun stuff. So what is the list of trips that we've done on? Because I know we've rattled this off before, and I always add or subtract some of them.
Yeah, we got that quick Wind River trip.
Backpacking in the Wind Rivers in Wyoming.
And then I think our first canoe trip together was I almost don't want to name the river, but the Smith River in Montana. Oh, no. We did the Missouri River. I came back. I was living in New York at that time, and I came back.
Yeah. The Missouri River breaks. Wild and scenic section. Where is that in? It would be northeast Montana, right?
Yeah, the breaks start right after Fort Benton, like 20 river miles after Fort Benton, and that's where it's a refuge, right? Game refuge, or it goes through game refuge, and it's a lot of BLM land.
Yeah, it's an interesting designation. I forget what it is, but I think it's a wild and scenic, one of the some sort of specific designation on the Missouri River there. And then, as you mentioned, the Smith River, which is a permitted river in Montana. What else? We did another Wind River trip. Yeah, it was the one with the deadfall hiking up into the lake, right?
Yep. A lot of good lessons learned on that trip.
No doubt about that. We got the Green River in Utah, Labyrinth Canyon and Stillwater Canyon.
Yep. Very memorable trip.
Yep.
Highly recommend. I tell everyone about that.
And then, of course, just a bunch of paddling when I was living in Montana. We were both in Bozeman, and just a bunch of day trips and different paddling around there as well.
Yeah, that was great. Like coming putting in at like 4 p.m. and paddling quick on like high water stuff. I mean, some of those trips we did like 10 miles in an hour.
I know.
Because like Yellowstone was flowing so fast. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, and there's so much. You're still in Bozeman there, and there's so much just amazing paddling right a stone's throw from there. I mean, all the rivers, and it's not as, maybe it's growing a little bit, but you tell me, it's not as canoeing is still a little bit of not a rarity, but there's not that many canoers out there, right?
People look at you funny.
Yeah.
I think. Some people realize what you're doing and they're like, oh, you're going canoe camping. That's awesome. And then like some people are like, why are you in a canoe and not a raft? And it's because, and I think the huge advantage of a canoe around these parts are some of the rivers get super braided and you're risking a lot trying to get a raft through some of those areas. And the advantage, you scoot through those and you've got these amazing wild lands with tons of birds that no one ever goes through. All the fishermen stop on those popular stretches and they don't go through, whether it be like the water's too hot or, it's too braided. But with the canoe, you can just go through.
Yeah, or it's just a little bit more difficult to get to on some of those western rivers. It's like the fishing routes are pretty established. It's like this put into this takeout, and it's like if you go one past that takeout, it's like there seems to be nobody there, or for whatever reason, maybe it's a little too precarious to get through with the drift boat, but you can poke through with a canoe. How did you get started canoeing, and I guess how did you get started in the outdoors and backpacking? Because I know that was how we first connected, was going on backcountry backpacking trips, and then how did it evolve to canoeing?
Well, I mean, I just got to pay tribute to like my grandfather who started my dad, his father-in-law. My dad was Dutch, and I don't think he'd done much camping at all. And we got a lot of hand-me-down backpacking stuff. I remember like old stoves, old aluminum frame backpacks, and I've learned from there. And like a lot of the stuff we were doing back then wasn't super environmentally friendly. We weren't like leaving trash or anything, but it's like every trip I go on, you get a little bit more conscientious of like what you're doing. And then backpacking, I think my brothers, they started doing those big trips by themselves, big like 20-mile hikes.
Because you grew up in Wyoming, right?
Yeah, on the eastern side in Gillette. So we had, the Bighorns were kind of our go-to place to go. And I remember the first mountain I climbed was Bomber Mountain, and in the Bighorns, where a World War II bomber had crashed in like 1946 or something, or maybe it was during the war. But you can go up there and see the wreckage on top of this mountain. It's pretty cool. You get to climb to the top of a mountain and see the wreckage of this old plane. It's a pretty memorable trip. I'd recommend it.
So you grew up with your family going outside and hiking and being active outside, and your brothers kind of started backpacking and going more deeper into the woods. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And how did you make the transition from backpacking to canoeing? Because I know that's a love of yours now, as it is mine. And how did you transition from that?
That was all our friend Jackson. I think he bought a canoe on Craigslist for $300 or something, and got us on the water that day, and ordered some crappy life jackets from Amazon, and some cheap paddles, and we went on the river early May. There was snow on the banks, and I was nervous as hell. Like, we didn't know what we were doing, and I love I'd always loved sailing and boats, and so it was immediate to me that it was like a new passion. And Jackson and I, like, biggest fight we've ever had was on that trip, because we just not good communicating. And he was about to punch me, and he's just like, you know what, if you want to do it that way, why don't you get your own canoe? And like, immediately I was like, all right, I'm gonna get a canoe, I'm gonna get a roof rack for my tiny little Honda Fit, and like, this is what I need to do. And then I think it was next summer that we did the Smith trip, and then it was just like, yeah, you have to, this is my life now in the summer, like as many days on the river as possible. Like, and, I'm a huge gear person, and, just having that perfect setup, in your canoe, and having a place for everything, it kind of bites you in the butt. But, I think I've like really figured it out, and pretty proud of my setup now. And
you got your puzzle. You got your puzzle just the way you like it, how you pack your boat, where exactly each bag goes, all of your camping gear fits into your boat perfectly, into its little nook and cranny, right?
Yeah. And, I finally got rid of like a 20-pound backpacking tent that was like 25 years old, and like have a bigger tent that's smaller packed, and, just every year it's something new. And I think this is the first year where like my dad was like, what can I get you for our trip? And I was like, I don't know. I feel like getting me anything's kind of redundant at this point. Like, and,
yeah, it's cool. I like multiple things, but it's funny how I love how you do the trips with your dad. You guys do family trips all the time. You've done tons of trips with him, and I say that because what a story this was, kind of by happenstance, right? We were doing I was doing a guided Buffalo Roamer trip to Moab, Utah, just this past fall. And you and I had done this same stretch just as a fun trip with our mutual friend Jackson, who's come up in this episode a couple times. And Jackson has an episode on the podcast as well. I forget what number it is, but talking about him and I's trip on the it's a funny way to say that, him and I trip on the Yukon River. So if you're interested, go back and look at that. But anyway, what was I just saying, Peter? I lost my train of thought.
my dad and how cool it is that
Oh
I've
yeah,
taken
yeah,
him
yeah.
on.
Yes, on these trips, and
Yeah.
so we did this trip down the Green River years ago, and I was leading this guided trip in the fall, and a few days before, I gave you, or I was texting you like, hey, trying to recall, just details about the trip, how much water we brought, what were good campsites, just kind of odds and ends details, and then you give me a call and you're like, hey man, are you going down the Green River? And I was like, yeah, taking a Buffalo Roamer group down there, October, we start whatever it was, October 15th or whatever it was. And you're like, no way. Like, I'm going down with my dad. We're putting it on the exact same day. So just a small world how that worked out. So we ended up doing the Green River the exact same day without talking to each other about it beforehand at all, other than those 2 days. That was funny.
Yeah, having I like a good river celebrity is someone you find on the river that it's fun.
Yeah.
It happens more locally, but it would have been just amazing had we already been there and you guys showed up. Like I would have
That's
lost.
funny. So, but all that to say that I think it's awesome that you do so many trips with your dad, including that Green River trip. And I know you've done big sections of the Yellowstone River in Montana with him as well, right?
Yep.
What?
Yeah, I've almost killed my dad several times. We've done two on the Yellowstone, the Jefferson, and the Green River. I think, yeah.
Great.
I guess four.
And your dad, how old's your dad, and how is he taking to it? Obviously, I spoke to him, so it seems like he's really enjoyed taking the canoe camping up as well.
Yeah, I think he's 67.
Great. And he's enjoyed going on and canoe camping. It's a little easier than doing the backpacking thing, right?
Yeah, I mean he loves it. Yeah, okay. He's 70 now, and yeah, he loves it. And obviously, it's most of the trips we've done, it's just him and I, and it's like, all right, Dad, you just sit here and drink some wine. I'll do everything. So it's a great way for me to like bond with my dad and like take care of him. I always joke it's like his birthday and his Father's Day present all in one. He loves it though, and it gives him the ability to get remote and like not see people without having to work super hard or on these rivers. He hates like snowmobiles and like four-wheelers and stuff, and so to be able to be remote and have that peace and quiet is I think a big deal. His last backpacking trip, he's like, I can't do this anymore. Luckily my brothers and I were there, and we carried all his stuff out, the last time we went backpacking. So it's and from that time until I took him on a canoe trip, it's probably about 5 years. So he, I don't think he realized how much he missed that remoteness. So
Totally, yeah, and it's cool to be able to, you get to know people so well in that setting, like just strangers. If you go on like a 5-night trip with them, like you get to know them really well, and to be able to do that with your dad is unique in that aspect too.
Yeah, it is. We talk about stuff you'd never think you'd talk about. And my dad's like the best DJ. I tell him to bring his iPod, and he likes doing albums, but I tell him to choose one song from each album. That's his favorite, man. And there are some amazing songs he pulls out that you've never heard. It's just like, wow, how do you have this knowledge?
That's funny.
Really fun.
What are some of your favorite water in the Montana area that you paddle? I mean, just throwing off a few of them. You mentioned the Yellowstone, the Jefferson, the Gallatin, the Smith. I mean, the Smith is a little more vaunted, but all of those are world class and well known Western rivers.
Yeah, I think the Missouri breaks. I'm like, as far as accessibility and like ease to get on the river, as far as permits and stuff, I think the breaks are probably one of my favorites, just because camping's easy, and it's such when you're at the river's edge, it's lush, it's green, there's cottonwoods, and then as soon as you hike up 15 feet over the bank, it's like stark high prairie desert. And
yeah, set the scene for me for the Missouri River breaks. It's kind of like, like you mentioned, kind of plains, but canyoned, if that is possible, right?
Yeah, there's some big cliffs, kind of, if you imagine that river being massive at one point in time, is left behind, they're not sheer cliffs, they're kind of off in the distance normally, but it's these cedar trees, a lot of cedar trees, white, like chalky soil. You see elk, and we saw bighorn sheep, running around. And you get these waypoints that tell you that Lewis and Clark had camped there, or there's these historic times where like river runners and explorers have had conflicts with Native Americans. And my friend found a cast iron bullet or shell that was at one of the campsites. So it kind of, it's easy to imagine how hard life would have been for them.
Yeah,
in such a rugged place.
It's cool, especially with Lewis and Clark, right? Because it's so cool to be able to go to the exact same spot that somebody was, Lewis and Clark or whoever, but because Lewis and Clark took such good detailed writings, it's easy to do, right? It's cool to be able to go to that exact same spot and like read their writings or their description of it, and see how it's changed or how it hasn't changed. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Missouri's great. And then I'd really like to do like Marias River, which, Lewis and Clark wrote about and named after like someone's sister or something. And you could do that like 60-mile stretch of the Marias, get to Fort Benton, like restock, and then canoe down both the upper and lower sections of the upper Missouri breaks. And I think it would just be a really good trip, an easy long trip,
Sounds fantastic. Do you have any wildlife stories from some of these canoeing or backpacking trips that you've done that come to mind? I know Montana is chock full of wildlife.
I mean, the first thing you say wildlife, it's always those damn beavers just slapping the water. I mean,
yeah, beavers, territorial beavers. I remember that on the Mississippi was the first time I ever ran into that. Yeah, anytime beavers are near you, they get real territorial and they'll slap the water with their tail, and it's such a loud slap. You're like, what the hell is going on? And oh yeah, just the beaver down there.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I heard them and I didn't realize what it was, I thought deer were jumping into the river or something, or or at first I thought like a rancher was like jumping in the water to like come like kick us off our campsite, you know? Like that's always kind of going through your mind sometimes. You're like, am I supposed to be here? Like I'm on an island, but is this guy like that mad he's gonna like swim across the river?
No, just the beaver. And they do it a bunch too. They'll do it all night long.
Yeah. Yeah, the beavers, man, are cool. And then what's cool in Bozeman is you get a lot of the sandhill cranes and then the pelicans too. And in like on the Gallatin, or no, the Madison, there's this area where like not a lot of fly fishermen go, and it's just like sandhill crane season. It sounds like you're in Jurassic Park, and
those are big birds, huh?
Yeah.
The one story that I remember, slightly secondhand, and I'm interested to hear if you were there. So when we did the Smith River, which how many nights was that trip? What is it? 5 nights?
4
nights.
We did 4 nights.
4 nights, 5 days.
Yeah.
And I remember our buddy Jackson was we were off on a hike. I don't know if you were in camp or not, but if you are, please fill in the blanks. But Jackson was using the outhouse, which was off away from camp a little bit. And all of a sudden, I was walking back from the hike, just kind of on the edge of camp at the time. But all of a sudden, we hear this huge, large commotion, and they're screaming, "Bear, bear, bear, bear!" And sure enough, a black bear had kind of scrambled into camp. And in my head, I just have the image of Jackson like running away from the porta potty with his pants around his ankles, like scrambling away, trying to hide behind a tree as a black bear is coming into camp. That's always one that sticks out in my mind.
Oh yeah, I was behind you on the hike, and yeah, that was a highlight of the trip. And then our other friend, the bear was kind of coming back. And our other friend Peter just like picked up a pot and pan and just started screaming and running straight at this little guy.
Got him to run, right?
Oh yeah, no, it was good. Yeah, that was the closest. And then on the next year we did it, I came around the bend, and there was all these ducks and little ducklings. I'm not sure. They weren't ducks, some sort of waterfowl. And I like turned down the speaker. I was like, quiet, like we don't want to disturb these little ducks. And then we went around the corner, and then there's 2 golden eagles, 10 feet away, just like right on the bank, just sitting there. They must have gotten a fish or something. That was a big one too. That was cool.
That's neat. There's so many eagles around me here in the Midwest for multiple reasons, but there's just like bald eagles everywhere. And there's a couple of the rivers around here, 2 rivers, the Mississippi, of course, and then the Rock River here is close to me. And there's like a couple dams on them, so they don't freeze over. The river doesn't freeze, so all the eagles come to right near the dams to winter, and will just like crush fish right below the dam all winter long. It's pretty wild, like
Wow.
dozens of them.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Also, lots of bald eagles just on the rivers that I paddle around here too. Kind of cool. Hey, it's Will here. Are you looking for an adventurous job? I got just the place for you. Camp Manitouish YMCA up in Boulder Junction, Wisconsin. The North Woods of Wisconsin is looking to hire staff for their summer camp and leadership program and operations. Come have a summer-long wilderness experience working with the youth. Let me tell you, I worked there for 3 years, and awesome place. The North Woods are amazing. It's absolutely beautiful. beautiful up there, fresh air, tall pines, and great, great people. You're going to enjoy it if you go up to Camp Manitouish YMCA in Boulder Junction. Some of the perks of employment include weekly salary, all housing and food provided for the entire summer. They offer leadership training, options for wilderness certifications like Wilderness First Aid, CPR, Wilderness First Responder, and more. They offer opportunities to lead awesome trips with youth in the outdoors. So to find out more, check them out at manito-wish.org. That's manitouish.org. Or you can just Google Camp Manitouish YMCA. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It still pops up. That's usually what I do. And make sure you tell me you heard about it on Buffalo Roamer Outdoors. And when we were in the Yukon this past summer for the Buffalo Roamer trip, we didn't see really any wildlife. The river was really high, so I think wildlife was like pushed off kind of into the trees because there's no like river bank or like shallows that they can walk along because the river was really high up against the bank. So we didn't see much wildlife, but we stopped counting the eagles on day 2 or like 1.5 after we got to like 25 eagles. We're like, all right, we're gonna stop counting, and that's a lot of eagles.
Yeah. This girl I worked with didn't believe me that I've seen bald eagles. I don't know why. I don't think she could even, she just wasn't interested in it. And my friend and I, we just kind of flexed on her. She didn't believe us that we'd seen them, and we went on a trip and we took a picture of every bald eagle that we saw. We got up to 8 or something.
Yeah.
And she finally believed us. It's kind of strange, the disconnect that people have with nature,
Totally.
One of the things. Education's like the best way to preserve nature is like, yeah, these things are out there and like you can easily see them. You just have to get off the trail a little bit and
totally
scare yourself a little bit,
One of my craziest things, or not craziest, but one of the things on that note that I always think of is like talking to folks in the city who either grew up in the city or whatever, that just haven't gotten out, that like can't see or like, don't have a good understanding of stars. Like I've talked to people, they're like, yeah, I've never seen the stars, or I, don't see stars. It's like, oh my gosh, like you are missing out. Like it is just an absolute, like one of the highlights of life is just hanging out under a, completely dark sky, watching the stars, especially if there's like a meteor shower. That's another thing a lot of people haven't seen, right, is shooting stars, which we see all the time in the backcountry.
Yeah.
On that note, too, a couple things that makes me think of is one, catching the northern lights on that Missouri River breaks trip. around a late night 30-pack session.
Yeah, I mean, how long do you think it took us? But I think they were pretty faint. They weren't. We could see them in the distance. They were low, and I think we were all confused as to like, is it the moon rising? Is it the city in the back reflecting off clouds? And I think it took us a good 20 minutes before we realized that it was Northern Lights, because it was during the summer, and it was, it's something kind of unheard of, and we were rewarded for staying up so late,
Yeah, we had no idea, and I think afterwards there was some articles out that, like you said, it's a rare phenomenon to have them that south, and B, to have them, like you said, in the summer. And we just happened to be up around the fire at 2 a.m. still standing in order to see them. Those northern lights were awesome. And then how about seeing the Starlink? I think it's a launch in Moab. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't think it was a launch. I think we had talked about it a couple nights, on a 10-day trip, and then on the third night we were talking about it again, and then I just looked up and I was like, oh, they're right there. And then we kind of saw them at different angles in it, which made them look further away. Like when they were going right above us, it went across the whole night sky. And then a couple times we saw them where it's just like a little section.
Yeah, it was
where the white was
the craziest thing is
hitting
these
off.
Elon Musk satellites. I joked slightly polluting the sky. They look like stars, just like in a straight line, flying over the sky. It looks like aliens or something. It was the craziest thing, and I could be wrong, but I looked it up, and I wanted to say that was a launch because after they fire off in a line originally, and then they disperse to like blanket or cover the orbit of the Earth. So I think they're only in a line. I could be wrong, but I think they're only in a line at launch or like soon to launch, and then they disperse. And that was one of the crazier things I've seen. I've seen that twice now. I saw it once on that 10-day trip in the middle of the desert of Utah, and I saw it once out here on the farm here in northern Illinois. Crazy thing just to look up in the sky and see a line of stars, just straight line flying overhead. Pretty nuts.
Yeah, I mean, the first time I saw it, I didn't know about Starlink at all, and I was pretty messed up about it. I thought it was aliens for sure. Like, it was crazy.
Have you had any close calls or interesting encounters I guess close calls on the river? The one that comes to mind is the boat that's wrapped, I think, right?
I think it's sunk very peculiarly on some rocks, and I don't know if it's still there. But yeah, that was another Jackson Pieter adventure, and that was
what
very
happened there?
eye-opening.
What happened?
Oh man, I hope Jackson doesn't listen to this one.
Who cares?
I was in the front, Jackson was in the back. Again, just like communication of like what we're gonna do. And we just got sucked further and further into.
So you're on a fast moving river in Montana?
Yeah, the Dearborn River. If you guys ever want to go, it's a great day trip. It's tough to camp on. You're not supposed to camp on it. And yeah, we got stuck. We got just sucked far left of some rapids, and the front got pushed up on a rock, which pushed the back down, and then the back started taking on water. So it was like a boat stuck kind of pinned to the side and down with rushing water, just like pounding into it. And that was definitely like an eye-opening, like the river is your friend and your enemy. And luckily some rafters, there was 4 or 5 rafts that were coming through that were on a day trip that picked us up, and we both got to sit on the back of rafts, and we were both like, oh, rafting's kind of nice.
So you left the canoe pinned on a rock in the middle of the river?
Yeah, and then the next weekend I bought, pulleys and static line, and we set up a Z-drag system, and we pulled on that Z-drag until our Pruist knot started slipping. Have you ever set up a Z-drag?
I have, but it's been a long time.
So like when that Pruist knot kind of holds your spot when you're like pulling on it, and and we pulled and pulled until like the Pruist wouldn't hold the rope anymore. Like there wasn't enough friction in the Pruist to like keep our spot, and we pulled as hard as we could, and so we had to leave it again. So it was kind of a, at least we tried, and we tried to go back and get the boat. And to the credit of Discovery Canoes, I think it was a Discovery. No, Winona. Was it at Winona?
No, I think it was Old Town Discovery. Yeah.
Oh, Old Town Discovery. Yeah, that's right. Perfect condition, like not a crack, like
Just bent.
thousands of pounds of water, like, and it was perfectly good canoe. So someone got that canoe. And that kind of like brings up the thing that's great about canoes too, is like just beat the crap out of them. Like you can run over so many rocks with no problems with certain canoes. Not all canoes.
Yes.
But that's just the nice thing about them. They're so durable and they're cheap. Craigslist canoes. I mean, come on. Like Jackson always brags that he can get you on the water and in an afternoon with $600. Just like they're out there, and
Yeah,
it's such an
absolutely.
accessible way to get on the water.
Totally.
So,
And there's so much water and so much area to explore that's like underexplored and underutilized. I also had a boat pinned one time in Colorado when I was in college. There, I was paddling with my buddy Alex, and we were on the St. Vrain River outside of Boulder, and we were paddling, and it was a springtime, fast-moving snow melts. Again, fast-moving Western River, pretty unforgiving, really. And this was just past the foothills of the mountains, so kind of out in the plains. And we're paddling, and we there's a big strainer, a big tree overhang that comes out like past the middle of the channel, and on the other side, there's something else. There's like there's some sort of a funnel. So like there's like maybe a 5-foot gap or so in the middle of the river where the strainer ends, and then whatever was, I think it was a rock that was on the right side. So there's like a 5-foot gap that we have to hit in order to make it. And we stopped, like we eddied out above the tree, and we scoped it out, and we're like, oh yeah, we'll hit it, no problem. And we like go to peel out of the eddy, and the water is just absolutely ripping, and of course we don't make it, and we flip, and the boat gets pinned on it was weird how it worked. It was like the water was moving fast, but it wasn't like scary fast, but then exactly like you said, once the boat tipped and was pinned on that tree, it's like you realize how much force is on that on that canoe. And yeah, it got pinned onto the tree. I think we got swept under, and that was all she wrote. And we tried to dislodge it multiple ways. We like climbed out onto the tree, did a lot of dumb things to try and dislodge it, and no luck. And so we're stuck in the middle of this field, in the middle of nowhere, Colorado. So we ended up like hiking out. I don't know how long it took us, but yeah, we hiked out from this farmer's field, hitchhiked back into town and into the start point where we lost the canoe. Yep.
Yeah. I'm glad we didn't have to hike out. I don't know. We got stuck with cliffs that were just, I don't know how we would have gotten out.
What's your favorite part of a canoe trip? Waking up in the morning, being on the river, setting up camp, the stars.
I mean, every part is just, it's your river group, it's all those things you mentioned. I think it's just so relaxing. After you have breakfast and you pack everything up, like packing up can kind of be stressful because you're like trying to get on the river as soon as you can so you don't have to like go fast. But once you have everything packed up and you kind of just like push off, it's just so relaxing, and you have that like little moment of zen where all you have to worry about is not flipping. And some of the rivers are just so nice for that. And that's probably my favorite part, and especially like the start of the trip. You know, you've packed and you've organized, and you worry about, you know, things you didn't pack or whatever, and you finally that first day and you push off, and it's like, yes, my vacation has started, and all I have to worry about is getting to the car on time, and that's it. And
that is such a good feeling, isn't it? It's like there's so many good
Yeah.
feelings about a canoe trip, but that is one of the best. Especially, I agree with you for me because I'm not. The reason I plan is because I guess the reason anybody plans is because you have to. But I don't enjoy the planning and the packing. And you're a big gear guy. I'm not a gear guy. I don't really care about the gear. Just throw it in. If I'm going by myself, just whatever, throw it in. But
Yeah.
once you get out, once you push off from that bank and you're floating down the river and there's no going back to that start point, it's just like the biggest smile sets in. It's just like, all right, here we go. Doesn't matter what I forgot now because it's not coming.
Yeah, you make do. And it's like your river group, it's like you're not I'm a gear guy, but you're not a complainer either. Like, you don't want complainers on your trip.
Totally.
We're all going through it together. Like,
that's the number one thing. Yeah, it's the same for any trip. It's like you always think it's going to be the mountains, the river, the beauty, the wilderness, but it's the group you're with. It's the river group that you're with, and the number one way to ruin that is to have bad attitudes, right? Complainers, negative Nancy's. I don't have any time for that when I'm out in the woods or in life generally, but especially when I'm out in the woods trying to enjoy myself.
Yeah. That's why the guy that we skied with at Air Force, was he Air Force that we ran into?
I'm not sure.
When you're skiing with on Bachelor?
Oh, yeah, my buddy from college, Kurt. Yep. Yeah, he's a Marine.
Yeah.
Former Marine.
I'll take a Marine down a river anytime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that guy was flying on the mountain, right? And just a positive attitude.
He's not someone who's going to complain a lot, and he's just going to get through it no matter what happens, and he's going to be helpful,
Totally.
He knows what's going.
Yeah, you're 100% right. That's the biggest thing. I tell that to people I'm talking to for the guided trips for Buffalo Roamer too, is it's less about the experience you have. The most important thing is having a positive attitude. And I always just say the most important thing is being comfortable sleeping in a tent, and then B, just having a positive attitude, right? No complainers, no negative Nancy's on these trips.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you have any trips any bucket list trips or anything that you would love to do, either canoeing, backpacking, traveling, any bucket list trips?
I'd love to, I've always been jealous of your Yukon trip. And that's what's nice about having friends like you. It's like, okay, that's doable. Like, if Will can do it, I can surely do it. Like,
no doubt.
No offense or anything. I'm just saying, like, if someone else does it, like, oh, that's possible. Sweet.
Right.
I would love, I was just over in Scotland and like canoeing through some of those fjords and stuff, and some of those more remote places up in Northern Europe and stuff. I think would be just amazing. And like, also, I kind of had an idea of going over to Europe, bringing, just your like basic camping stuff, and like going down like rivers in France and stuff, and like going from city to city and just like leaving your boat locked up somehow, and then walking up to hostels and just like canoeing from city to city through Europe, I think would just,
That'd be awesome.
yeah, or the Netherlands or something. Like there's such a network of waterways in Europe that I think would just be a really cool way to see Europe and get off the beaten path of.
I agree. I've always wanted, I only know very vaguely, but I've always wanted to do a trip through like Sweden and Norway. I hear it's like beautiful canoe country there, kind of similar to like northern Minnesota or like the Northwoods here in the Midwest. I hear it's just like perfect canoe country.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a dream, man. I think that would be, I'd like to do something over there in the next 5 years. I don't know. It's a big thing, a lot of planning in that one. And, first thing, like you got to get a boat. Like, I don't know of any European canoe manufacturers. Do you?
Oh yeah, there's manufacturers. There's people out there, but yeah, it definitely is more planning than just throwing the canoe on the top of the Honda Fit and rolling down the street. How about like canoeing gear? What pieces of gear do you value the most on your canoe trips? Yeah.
Like most recently, I got a dry box that fits perfectly right in the center of my canoe, and I moved some of the thwarts and crossbars around to fit a cooler and a dry box, and that's just been amazing. I can have just the access to the gear easily, and having those flat surfaces, and a good amount of bear suppression with that box. Before it was like a bare barrel where you had to dig to the bottom of it.
Sure. So the dry boxes, you're going to be using that as a food barrel-ish?
Yeah, I've been using that as like food and like kitchen and everything. And
cool.
And then those sand steaks, baby. You gotta love those sand steaks.
Yeah, the sand steaks are great. You had some a buddy make. How big are they? Maybe
they're a foot. They're 1-inch angle aluminum. And they're a foot long each, and so you can use it to like do a freestanding structure with like, I've got some hefty poles that are collapsible, or you can use sticks or whatever. But that's coming huge on my rainy trips where you can set up a tarp wherever the fire pit or whatever is and have a nice dry area.
Nice. Yeah, the sand steaks are great on those Moab trips too, just to tie off all of the boats. You bring a little mallet and tap it in or hit it with a rock or whatever and tap it into the sand and then tie off all the boats to the sand stake. That's a clutch one.
Yeah, it's super helpful, especially when it's like high water and the banks are steep, and it's just a secure way. Those have been great, and I don't know. I guess my next thing I want is a stove that will fit, that's only 2 inches high when it's like, or 3 inches high when it's collapsed, so I can put it in between my dry box and my cooler.
Okay, something like a Coleman, like one of those green Coleman stoves, but thinner.
Yeah, just a little thinner.
Nice.
Welding aluminum it's kind of on my bucket list of things to learn how to do. And I think once that happens, I feel like I can
do anything.
Start making some pretty cool stuff. Yeah.
That's funny. Well, hey Peter, we'll start winding her down, but it's been fun chatting. What trips you got coming in? Nothing on the books here for this spring or summer?
Well, let's see. I need to I'm waiting. I'm like next on the list to do the Grand
Nice.
in February.
Okay, that's exciting.
End of February. It's gonna be cold.
You got to take somebody out to get on the list.
Yeah.
Hit them
Well,
with the.
I'm sure someone will dip. Someone's gonna.
What's the ice skater who hired somebody to take a baseball bat to the leg? That's a little extreme.
Nancy Kerrigan. No, I mean, I just need I don't know, and it almost makes me nervous how like the trip is like right around the corner, and it's like you guys don't have like deposits down yet. Like, there's got to be someone who's dropping out of this. Like,
well, if you're able to get on that trip, you got to go for it. That's one of the greats.
Right, and I'm gonna do my annual. Like, I'm gonna put in for my permits, and then after that, I'm gonna fill in my time with the Green River, and do the Missouri breaks. We've got Jackson's annual Memorial Day canoe trip weekend, so you better be showing up for that one. And yeah, man, I'm gonna get on the river regardless. I just got to see what permits I get, and what your availability looks like.
Yep, I know what you mean, man. We'll have to plan something out. Well, Peter, it's been fun chatting, man. Anything you want to leave us with before we wind it down?
If anyone's out there and they've ever wanted to get on a river trip, go for it. I've never taken anyone on the river who's like, I'm never doing that again. It's always like, where can I buy a boat? Like, what gear do I need? Like. And I'm always like, I got plenty of gear. You can borrow my boat. Like, whatever you need, just get out there. And what else was it? I can't think.
That's a great way to put it. Nobody's ever upset that they went on a river trip, right?
Yeah, and like, there's always a couple new people on a river, and like, I ran into these guys got drug along by this old dude on this last time I was on the Smith, and they were all backpackers and like avid outdoorsmen, and it was so funny. They were packing like they were backpacking with like spaghetti and stuff, and like we had our coolers and our giant like kitchen set up with tables and stuff, and we invited them over, and they were just asking me questions about canoe camping. I was oh yeah, you guys are missing out. Like,
it's the best.
You'll love it. It's the best. There's so much comfort added into canoeing, and I think that's one of the big things I like about it. It's like, you're not worried about every little ounce. You don't have to cut off the handle of your toothbrush to go down a river. So
totally, I agree.
Save your toothbrush handle, go canoeing.
That's a good one. All right, Peter. Thanks for taking the time, man. We'll have to get out on the river sometime soon.
Hey, it was a pleasure, Will. Thank you.
All right, there you have it. That's episode 64 of Buffalo Roamer Outdoors with Pieter Gerrits. Thanks for tuning in. Go give us 5 stars and write a review on Apple Podcast. If you enjoy the show, it's something small you can do that really helps me and helps the podcast out and helps it to grow. Got a couple spots left for the May of 2023 Green River Buffalo Roamer Wilderness Trip. Come join us on an epic canoe trip through the canyons of the Green River in Moab, Utah in May of this year. Couple spots open. The October trip still is sold out, I should say. The May trip still has a couple spots left, so come join us. Also, a couple spots left on the Yukon adventure this summer as well. You can find out more at buffaloroamer.com. Follow me on Instagram at buffalo_roamer. Take it easy, get some fresh air, and we'll talk soon.